Welcome to the 6th episode of PKRG TV's Well-Being series. Today we have a very special guest. Josephine Hunt has been a public school educator for 22 years and holds a master's degree in educational leadership and special education. She is also a parent consultant and coach and is becoming a sought-after public speaker. Her work explores the intersection of research in psychology, neuroscience, and educational leadership, and the lived experiences of teachers and students. Josephine has appeared on Mornings with Ken Rosato for On New Jersey News Media, in podcasts such as The Minimalist Educator and My Impossible podcast, and was recently interviewed live on CNN. Today we will be exploring the subject of developing resiliency in young people, which I certainly think is central to their well-being. I'm delighted to welcome Park Ridge's own Josephine Hunt.
Thank you.
So good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I'm really interested in your work, and I have a bunch of questions that I'm really eager to ask you.
Let's go then.
All right, okay. So you've said that resilience is not an innate trait, but a learned process. Can you tell me a little bit more about what resilience is and why it's important?
So resilience is something that kicks in when we are faced with challenges or how things don't go our way. So how we work through those discomforts, specifically how to regulate our emotions, problem solve, and persist regardless of setbacks. Why this is super important now is currently the way the trends of data and research and studies are showing. We're seeing that there's a real decrease in resiliency, specifically with dealing in disappointments. There's been a real big increase in hopelessness, stress, anxiety, tension, and frustration, with the 40% of suicide ideation, which is across the nation. And there's also over 50% of our children that are under the ages of 25 are being recorded as hopeless feelings. So that hopelessness is really a part of a lack of resiliency. In 2024, I've read so much data that there has been such an increase on harassment, intimidation, and bullying across the different districts. And when reading the reports and so forth, they become unfound. And what that means is these legal documents are put together on many of the social conflicts that are very developmentally appropriate, but become very escalated because our children are really lacking the problem-solving, proactive resiliency skills to handle some of these socially developmentally appropriate challenges and conflicts. Now, of course, there are a percentage that are found and have to be handled in those manners. And in 2025, just a month ago, we've noticed that the parenting challenges have also increased. And so research and studies and data have really shown such an increase in parenting challenges and issues. And specifically, the parents are just feeling at a loss for how to help their child how to best support their child. And a lot of their support is coming from fear and guilt, which is definitely not the most effective way, but parents are meaning their best. And so we're coming out here with helping our parents just do better.
So how can a parent help their child develop resilience?
Well, it's never too late to work on resilience. And so, as we said, like how we work through discomfort and challenges, it's really about looking at like what's good parenting versus responsible parenting. And parents really have good intentions. They really want to do what's best for their child. But a lot of times we kind of work with, and I'm going to put myself in that too as a parent, that we want to take away those discomforts and challenges and failures and mistakes from our children. And in essence, we're taking away that really important, resilient work. And so parents, at any point, it's really important that we can start implementing resilience on multiple levels. And so the difference is really allowing your child to work through the challenges and discomforts independently, and as well as stepping back for yourself and regulating your own emotions to allow your child to do the work.
Can you give me a specific example of something that might be happening with a child and how the parent could step in a way that would build resilience, and how they might actually do something that keeps the child from developing the resilience?
Yes, again, all with good intention. Right? Parents just really want to help their kids. And,
of course.
So, for example, if your 7-year-old child, and I could start with that young first, forgets to do his or her homework, and we don't want them to be failures, right? We don't want them not to have their homework brought in. And out of fear, we take that responsibility from them, and we email the parent, the teacher, or we even make it, or we'll do the homework for them, or even, just give the child an excuse, to the teacher saying, oh, that my child had to go somewhere. In essence, we're telling our children then that they're not capable of handling these conflicts or challenges, areas of just normalcy, and we just take that work away. That discomfort of forgetting to do your homework is a really good starting point for children to work, because, as we know, like, life becomes more challenging and more complex. So when we take away those beautiful challenges, which builds on the resilience of how they work through it, we're taking away and disabling what they can really come up with themselves in strength. We may not agree with how they solve that situation.
Because they're learning. They're kids. They're learning, right? They might not be perfect at it.
Right. Right. We're always looking at progress, not perfect.
Right.
I mean, and like, that's really important to always celebrate the work progress rather than the product, because if we put a lot of emphasis on product, we're saying it's really important that you get an A+ or a 100, and you complete it to the best in perfection. It's very stressful and anxiety inducing. And so to really celebrate and encourage doing your best. There's a great book called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks about, if you do your best, you can walk away feeling really good regardless of the outcome. So your outcome could be a 97 or it could be a 67, but you'll feel good about it.
So tell me whether, as a music instructor, which I am, whether I'm doing the right thing when I send a student into an audition. So sometimes when I send a student into an audition, or usually, I try to tell them that the best result is that they feel like they did a good job, because that's what they can control, like whether they did a good job, not whether they get the part. So is that kind of an example of focusing on the process, preparing as best as you can, doing a good job, and not like whether you get a part?
I love that. I love that. I'm so proud of you that you did that.
Okay, I'm doing the right thing. But you see, I'm learning, and I've learned from reading what you've written and watching you on your podcast. So now let's talk a little bit more about your work. So from reading about your work, I have found what you call the resilience loop, and you're kind of famous for the resilience loop, right? That is the notion, I'm going to get this right, the notion that resilience isn't built just once, but rather that it is cultivated through an ongoing, repeating cycle. I found that fascinating. Can you explain the resilience loop to our viewers?
Of course. All right. Yes. So there are multiple steps to the loop, but initially it starts with a challenge. So whatever challenge there is, again, it's the part of the resiliency that we may be having a difficult time with. So there's always a challenge that we come across in life. And then the challenge is then afterwards met by support, which is met by reflection, which is met by growth, and then confidence. And so I'll explain a little bit of each. But the major part of it is when our children have a challenge, how we support them, the second part of the loop. It's how we support them. And the way that a lot of good parents do is they try to remove the discomfort, remove the mistakes and failures, remove the negative emotions. But we're really taking away that delicious resilience work. And so supporting as a coach parent, being a parent coach rather than a helicopter parent or a snowplow parent. And coaching really means asking good questions, deep and meaningful questions, so that our child, like you were saying what you did with music lessons, our child can then look intuitively and within and figure out what works best for him or her. It's not about our perspective, what we want for our children. It's harvesting what works best for them. So that coaching method is crucial. It's how we handle the challenge. It's super important.
So what would be an example of a challenge?
So another challenge would be at 10 years old, for example, if your child wasn't invited to one of the cool play dates or birthday parties.
Oh, I see this on social media all the time. My kid wasn't invited to the birthday party. What do I do?
Right.
Right. So that's the challenge. Kid disappointed about not being invited.
Now, is the kid disappointed or is the mom disappointed?
Okay, well, on social media, the mom is saying like the kid is disappointed. Is she projecting? I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, that's another important thing. There's a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Definitely a must read.
Okay.
And he talks about when we're working with other people, children, students, what have you, that we have to really look at when we're helping others. Are we looking for our perspective? So if my child wasn't invited to a party and our child is showing up communication and behaviors that may not be as disappointed as we are, we have to really look at that. Like, what's the lens here? Are we disappointed that they didn't go to the birthday party, or are they really, or he or she? So that book really brings a lot to life.
And then how would the parent then support if they were going to be doing this optimally to build resilience in their child?
Perfect question. So that's the coaching. That's the supporting coaching part. So first, as a parent, right, you're going to have an emotional response. You're going to feel upset for your child or whatever it is, a negative response. You have to first regulate your emotion before you can co-regulate your child's emotion. So if your child is showing disappointment, communicating disappointment, you have to first regulate yourself, like and collect yourself first in order to co-regulate your child. And there's another excellent book for that with Dr. Mark Brackett from Yale University. So first you regulate yourself, and then you can approach your child and say, tell me what's going on. How are you feeling? What else would you like to do about it? So coaching questions. And when your child responds, the rule is to give 2 full minutes to have your child communicate what he or she is communicating without any intervention.
So is that the reflection part?
Then they would reflect. Your child would reflect to see what he or she needs to do in order to get through this challenge. And they stir up what's important for them on how to solve this problem rather than us imposing our solution.
Right. And then the growth would be that the child would come to like peace with what happened, or get an idea about what would happen next time, or what?
So the child would then, drum up some ideas that he or she wants to do to implement as a solution towards moving away from the emotion and moving away, figuring out a solution towards the conflict. And the growth would be then implementing that solution, possibly asking the friend, why wasn't I invited? Rather than the mom calling the mom saying, like, why wasn't my child invited to this birthday party? Really giving ownership to your child and autonomy for them to implement that independence.
And then the confidence comes.
Huge, that's a major part, right? So confidence is really then, because now that child just came up with their own solutions, his or her own solutions, and implemented it. And whatever the outcome is, doesn't really matter. It's just that we gave our child now that empowering tool of like, you developed your own skill, you implemented it, and now you have confidence to handle the next challenge, which then goes into the next challenge of the resiliency loop. Yeah, so we have to handle resiliency as not like a born trait. Like, it's not something that we just have and it cultivates. We have to be mindful in working on it. It's like a muscle. So if you work out at the gym and you're working with 5-pound weights, it's going to be a little uncomfortable for you at the beginning of your 5-pound weight workout. But after 2 days, 3 days, possibly 7 days, now you have good control over it and you feel comfortable with it. So you've already plateaued with your growth. How do you grow your resiliency? You make the weight a little harder. You go up to 7 pounds maybe. And now you're developing more strength, more strategies. You figure out how strong and creative you are when you're placed in those situations. But if someone's going to pick up that 5-pound weight for you or that 7-pound weight for you, you're not going to grow and you're not going to develop. So yes.
So in what instances should a parent intervene? And how
we're never hands off with our children. And when I say children, I mean children under the ages of 25. Even though, they're 21 or 18 and they're legal adults, but under the age of 25, your brain is not fully developed for all of those abstract regulation and emotional functions. So we have to keep that in mind. How do we intervene in a supportive coaching way? Same thing. We really give that 2-minute rule of really listening and observing to your child's message, so that your child can really give the full message, and then you can keep asking the right directive questions and guiding questions like a coach to get them to what they need to do next. If it's a dangerous situation, then of course, as a parent, you need to intervene and take the next, precautionary steps, for sure.
Because sometimes there's, actual cyberbullying going on.
Yes.
And sometimes actually a child could become devastated by that and maybe even suicidal.
Yes.
So, when a parent can see that something is more serious than just normal growth.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then, of course, you would need professionals to get involved, the school, guidance counselors, medical professionals. So, of course, if you feel that it's beyond your coaching help, and that your child is really going downhill with it, then you need to find professionals to help you. And the guidance is all there. Once you start taking that first step towards seeking for help and how to best support your child, the professionals will all guide you to the right direction.
Because maybe that would be an example that the child wouldn't want to go to school, or there could be, what would the signs of more seriousness be? Definitely
if there are, self-harm, eating disorders, being absent from school, a number of days that are becoming an issue with graduation or moving on to the grade, those are definitely places where parents need to get intervention by professionals. Going to the school and going to the doctors just to express this and communicate it is very important, because then parents can definitely support and best help your child if it came to those severe needs.
But not being invited to every single birthday party is not that.
No, yeah. And that's right. And so that's really this conversation is, raising the resilient child is really implementing these resiliency situations right from the beginning as they're young, so that they can have cumulative growth in this strength and self-driving, problem-solving skills. But it's never too late to start, as we said a little earlier. But you do have to keep in mind that after you consider that you want your child to be more independent in problem solving or handling discomforts, you have to consider that if your child is 11 or 12, let's just say, and you've been providing all of this intervention support, where if your child missed homework or didn't make it to wasn't invited to a birthday party, and you provided all those interventions, and now you want to implement resiliency, you have to keep in mind that for the past 11 years that we did all that for them, and you have to meet them where they are and then scaffold how to build in resiliency. Because parenting is never hands off. It's always, we're coaching, we're always looking and listening and observing and supporting our child so that he or she can do the best he or she can with their skills and their abilities. And yes, and so it's super important to recognize that when you start implementing, children to be independent with their problem solving and conflict resolution, how we best support them. Again, it's mostly about how we get them to their solutions, not by us imposing our solutions.
So before you mentioned that the resiliency loop does build confidence, and you have another little visual that I saw, which is the 10 things I wish kids knew about confidence.
Yes.
And I'm all about building confidence in the kids I teach. So can we talk about those 10 things? Because I absolutely love them and learned from them.
So confidence is another character trait that we have to really be mindful of and practice mindfully. It's a proactive consideration and implementation. We're not just born with it, but we have to also be mindfully practicing it. So with confidence, it should be practiced daily. Even if we're feeling not confident, trying to find the way to be as strong as possible to get through our discomfort. It strengthens with challenge. So in other words, like as your challenges become increasingly more difficult and you're putting yourself out there, knowing that it's a potential that you may not be perfect or it may not come out as you want it to be, it's okay. You just keep going, because the first step is the first step of 1,000 steps of a journey. Just get started. Sometimes we don't know how we're going to do something, but once you get that first step in, you'll be amazed with how you could come up with different strategies and solutions of how to keep going. We don't know how strong we are until we're there. But if people take away those areas of we just keep getting safety nets, we're not going to know. And failure is super necessary for success. We don't know what's good without bad, right? But I'm not saying failure is bad. Failure is an opportunity to learn.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And we know success because of failure.
Yes, absolutely, right? So confidence grows by doing hard things, not avoiding them, right?
No, looking for the hard challenges.
Right.
Of course, safe ones. Yeah. So just trying, even if you're not sure how you're going to execute the whole thing, but taking that first step and just trying, you may not know how you're going to complete it or how you're going to get to the end result. And always finish. That's super important too. That completion really builds confidence. No matter how uncomfortable or how many failures there are within that process, get to the end and complete it. And little successes really build that's almost like another resilience loop, because when you have little successes,
what would be a little success?
So let's just say a challenge is you're just having a hard time, increasing your skills in a sport or in music class, right? You want to get this part. And so your goal is to get this specific, role on the team or role in a play or musical production. And you really want this goal, but it's really kind of far away from how you could get there and you're not sure how. Start looking at little milestones that you can accomplish and really consider those, really put weight into those. I was able to. Now I went from, being, sitting on the bench and being part of just only the practices. Now I'm part of the game. And even it might be 5 minutes of the game, it's more than 0 minutes. So celebrate those successes.
With my students, maybe would this be a little success? I tell them in their lessons, right? If they did better than they did last time, then that's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for it to be perfect, excellent, whatever. But if they did better, if their breathing was better than last time, that's a success.
Yeah, so you could anchor the question that way so that you can get them to make that answer. You can have them say that, so you could ask them how do you feel about your breathing? If you saw an improvement from their breathing or their voice, you can ask that specific question so they'll answer you with that.
Right, that little success that and you point that out, right? All right, speaking of that, your voice matters, right? Speaking up, right? So how does speaking up for yourself build your confidence?
That's super important, and that's where parents sometimes take that away from their child too. So, if a child really believes that he or she should have this part in school or have this part on a team or receive a specific grade, coach your child to get that voice. Have him or her communicate that. I know we spoke one time about you had some students that came for college acceptance letters or recommendations, and the students that come and do that work, it takes a lot of confidence. Mm-hmm. And we're really so proud that they can do that, and that's what they should be doing, right? Because they're going to be going to college and continuing to be independent and problem solving and proactive. But if parents are asking you, should my child get, a college recommendation letter from you? It's taking the work away from our child, and we're telling our children then indirectly, we really are telling them this, that they're not capable of doing it. And that's so important. We don't want to tell our children that they're not capable, because they are. I'm capable. They're always capable. We have to teach them, that they have these tools within them. What tools they decide on how they're going to communicate those messages is their choice. So we have to be okay with that. We have to accept how our child decides to ask the music teacher for a college recommendation. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a text, or maybe it's in person. They're doing it independently, and we celebrate that, rather than parents doing it for them.
And then you also mentioned self-talk.
Yes.
And self-talk is huge, and I think it's worse with girls.
Yes.
The self-talk.
Yes.
So
Well,
how can so how can that be improved?
I mean, I have 3 daughters, so I really don't know how boys have self-talk. But the bottom line is, self-talk is really on the molecular level. And this is where I love all the neuroscience that I've learned through this, about this work. But when we have positive self-talk, it really actually propels us towards the positive results that we're looking for. Now, look, I know we're human sometimes, right? So we will have a negative feeling. That's okay. We're human first, right? And so handling that human response of like envy, jealous, angry, sadness, frustration, tension, whatever negative emotion you're having, work through it. You know, like it's okay. Like, you're human first. But then be mindful and be proactive in implementing, how am I going to move forward from this, and have that positive self-talk. You know, Barack Obama was so great. He said something like that we have to like we're just as good as anybody else. We're just all folk. And I just love how he said that. Like, it was just really it was so beneficial to know that we're all the same. We all have the skills within us, but we have to believe in ourselves and have that positive self-talk to propel us forward.
Right. And then I also liked what you said about self-worth not being attached to the results.
Yes. Super important.
So that comes with failure too, doesn't it?
Right, so this is important for parents especially, because teachers will be different every year, as well as coaches and so forth. But as parents, to really teach our children to really recognize that their self-value really comes from doing their best and accepting them for who they are and believing in their capabilities, rather than tying it to product. So, you know, I'm really proud that you worked really hard in like your college applications, and I could see how much time and effort you put in. I could see how important it is to you. Not, hey, I'm so proud you got into Harvard. Very different, like encouragement for process versus praising product.
Right,
Super
right.
different.
Yeah.
It's one of the parenting pitfalls is praise. Praise is really we kind of damage our children when we give them too much praise, because they are now extrinsically looking for these extrinsic rewards. And so what I mean by that is, if your child, you know, got past his or her like driver's license test, and they're looking for yours, you know, like you're saying like, hey, great job, like, so proud of you that you got your driver's license. Like, it should be more about intrinsically that they feel good about learning those skills, implementing those skills, and accomplishing that for themselves. Right? We should always be our own person to evaluate, because the worst person to disappoint is yourself. It really is. You should always be, you know, proud of your own self.
This is true. And then the last one, you said you don't have to feel confident to act confident. And my thing that I tell my students is, fake it till you make it, right?
So confidence is another skill like resiliency, where we have to be mindfully proactive in implementing it. And so, yes, sometimes we may not feel fully confident to take on some challenges that might give us discomfort, but just take the part, get started. Once you take that first step, you'll figure it out, and the confidence will then grow, because then you'll be a part of that resilience loop where you take on the challenge and you'll figure out like which supports you need to get onto the next steps.
All right, okay. Does developing normal resilience prepare young people for more serious stressors in life? And do we need to approach trauma resilience in a different way?
So resilience in general is a very important skill, regardless of age, regardless of the depth of the challenges that we're coming across. If, as we said earlier on, that you're seeing that there is beyond typical behavior, like suicide, eating disorders, self-harm, anything that we see that there's more trauma outside of the typical average developmentally appropriate behaviors, definitely get help in addition to what you're doing as a parent coach. But however, the resiliency skills that have been implemented and that your child has practiced will always come into a benefit. It will never be not a benefit. So to continuously allow your child to work through discomfort, right? And work yourself through your discomfort so that your child can be stronger and more creative and recognize their resilience, even in areas of trauma. And there are some things that are really difficult, right? And as an adult, I mean, if I'm reaching in a trauma situation or event, I'm going to seek extra help if I know that I can't help myself to the effect that I can. So just be very mindful and observant and being a deep listener for meaning and understanding. Sometimes what we do as parents is we'll listen because we want to come up with a solution or a label, and we may be missing what our child is communicating to us.
You know, you told me when we had our little pre-interview about having conversations when you're driving.
Oh, yes.
And I thought that was really interesting. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes, yeah. Conversations in the car. Conversations in the car, especially with children that are in middle school up into high school and, you know, before they're 25, let's just say, the conversations in the car are so effective. And what that means is, you know, I know when my daughters, like, or, you know, or even like when I coach cheerleading, if the person needed time to talk, they would say, like, can we just go take a ride in the car? And what's really so helpful is that we're not looking at each other. So the eye contact is not there. And so, you know, I'm driving the car and the other individual is in the passenger seat. And this person feels very safe and comfortable in the car to just converse about whatever it is that he or she needs to talk about. And what's great is that, not that eye contact is not good, but sometimes our eye contact gives communication. Sometimes our eyes can show worry. Sometimes our eyes can show fear. Sometimes our eyes can just show some kind of communication that then deters our child's message. And then we don't get to the genuine, authentic message that our child is trying to convey.
Right, so the kid can see, oh, I'm talking about this, mom's getting really upset, and then they just stop.
Right, or change the message. No, I'm okay. Or, you know, something that's different, and we never get to the root of what that person is trying to communicate. So the conversations in a car are so helpful.
Sometimes, you know, I have, again, it's me seeing my students, and they have really huge reactions over minor things, and I think to myself, how would this kid deal with losing a grandparent? How would this kid deal with their parents having a cancer diagnosis?
So not only like natural life, you know, complexities as, you know, our child goes through, you know, middle school and high school and college, like, of course we want to prepare them so they could be as independent and resilient as possible. But when these traumatizing situations that come through, and they're very overwhelming, of course we're going to get a little dysregulated. We have to, we're human first, but it's also how we work through it. So teaching your child with these small steps of resiliency, these little successes, really help those kind of major problems. Well, for a child to know that their parents might be getting divorced or someone has cancer.
I mean, that's serious.
Yes, it is really serious. Yeah, and they should feel, you know, a negative response, but how they work through it so that they don't end up harming themselves or using substance abuse to replace those negative emotions.
So it's kind of like going to the gym for your confidence, right?
Yes,
yeah, right,
yes.
right. So when should a parent start resilience work? And is it ever too late? You know, I mean, a lot of times I see, you know, a senior in high school and the parent's been doing everything for them and fixing all the problems. And is it ever too late, right?
No, it's never too late. It's never too late. And that's a really, I like how you gave that example. So parents really, again, with all good intention, I really believe that. That's really my philosophy. People do everything with good intention and they mean well and they want to do the best they can. I mean, it's your child. You want to do the best you can for your children. But what I've seen, and because my daughters are in their 20s now, is that parents do a lot of the work for their children. And then when their kids go off to college, they'll say to their child, okay, well, now you're on your own. I did everything for you. Now you have to figure it out.
They just drop them there.
Yeah.
They're just like you're in college. And well, I mean, I was a college instructor and their kids behaved a certain way. And then there was a certain year that the kids came in and they couldn't find their classroom. Like they literally, I'm sorry, I couldn't find my, okay, because they were always led by the hand and brought to.
Yes, they weren't proactive. And so we're actually disabling our children when we do that. And even though we're saying like, well, I did this for you, you should be able to know how to do it. It's almost like your child's on a soccer team, okay? And you're dressing yourself in the uniform and you're putting all the pads on and you're drinking the water and you're going to the practices and then you send your child to the game. Your child will not be able to know what to do in the game if you did all that work for them. We're setting them up for not doing well in the game. And so the game is life. So really having them work through the natural, organic life challenges and conflicts is really super helpful and important. actually, if not most important, for their future successes.
And when does it start? Like for a 5-year-old, for a 3-year-old? I mean, when do you start helping your kid build that?
I mean, you start right away. So, and again, it depends where every parent is with this. I mean, if you've been doing a lot of the work for your child, that resilience work, then start right now. But you have to also look at what you've done for your child up until this point and see where your child can start becoming more independent and how you can go into coaching. And so we could start as young as like 12 months old. So if they have disappointment that something happened, it's okay to be disappointed. Have empathy, not debilitating empathy, but empathy that's supportive. Like, I see you're upset, and your body feels a little sad. What do you want to do about it? How do you want to fix it? What can we do next? What's your next step? Lead them with their proactive thinking on how they want to resolve it. We may want to give them like an ice cream or a lollipop, but they may just be happy of getting like another cup or something that's simple. So really asking them the guiding questions so they can come up with what works for them.
So I always say, and I learned this from my mom, is that you prepare your child for the road. You don't prepare the road for your child. So, my mom was very, very careful, and I'm grateful about this, that she didn't go around trying to make everything right so that when I got there, everything would be fine. She would be telling me, okay, this and this and this can happen, right? And preparing me of how to deal with it, maybe giving me suggestions, but not trying to interfere and make things work out. She was very careful. So would that be a good sort of principle?
Yeah.
And I do love your founding principle. And we talked about that too, that the belief in the goodness of people. So, all of this sort of interference comes from the best of intentions, right? It does.
Yes. And so if we can always reach people like that, just knowing that what people show up with is their best tools at that moment. So as a teacher, and I'm a special ed teacher, I've had quite a few irate parents, and I can understand. I can understand how that comes to fruition if the understanding isn't there. So I know that there's some part that I need to connect and communicate, so that they understand a little better. But really, believing in people's best ability for where they are. What I've found to be even more recent is a lot of the how parents are behaving with kids in a behavior in a positive way is they're coming out of fear. And I think parents are, and this is what I've been reading, that parents are just fearful of allowing their child to be having discomfort or challenges or not successes. And they're afraid for their child to have mental issues that way or emotional dysregulation that way. But those are the chances that we have to give our children to build those skills of resiliency. So a lot of it comes from fear, I've recognized, in the past several years, specifically since COVID, and a lot of guilt too.
Josephine, I want to thank you so much for sharing your perspectives today on well-being. If our viewers want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, first I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, and I truly believe the philosophy that everyone's doing the best they can, so keep doing the best work you're doing. Please reach out to me. I definitely want to help you. You can reach out to me in 3 ways. I have an email address, josephinevolaric@gmail.com. You can also find my awesome website. I love my website. It's www.josephinehunt.com, so josephinehunt.com. And I also have a YouTube channel with a lot of great videos that are also very supportive, and that's at Josephine V. Hunt at YouTube.
Well, thank you to our viewers for watching today. I'm Lori Fredericks for PKRG TV, where there's something for everyone.